welcome to this lecture. So in the previous couple of lectures we have implemented this coin.py and bricks.py and bricks.py Python files, and now it's time to get to scores. So let's go and make this score. So let's hit OK and just import some of the module. That will be pygame as always as pg, and from that is data directory let me import setup, and it's time now to just import constant. So constant should be imported again from this data. So if you see here, it should be inside this data. So this import should be done constant as c here. So now let's create a class. Here would be digit, so this is basically a number, and let's get this pg dot sprite, should be sprite dot sprite in order to handle with the images. So this class is basically signifies the individual digits for the score. So let's define the initializer here. So it will take image, and now first it will just, let me just call here super and super digits, and just give a self and just call its init function. So this super is basically for our parent class, and now let's define this image to be the image that we just passed here, and similarly the rect. So rect can be achieved from this image, so this should be self.image, and we have something that is get rect function. I'll say get rect here. So after this what you can have is, we'll just create another class, and this will be our main class for score. So this will contain the object, and now this object is here optional, so you can just left it out and just go here, and this is basically the scores that appear, and it is also a float and up and disappear. So this is the score that will float up and also it will disappear. That means I'll say define init. So this is the initializer that will just be initialized for the position and for the score, and we have something that is flagpole. So let me say this flagpole should be false because we won't be implementing this flagpole. And now let's define for this self.y as y. So what we're gonna do is, we'll check that is if the flagpole, so if the player just hit that flagpole, so there should be a score. So that means we'll say if flagpole, that means it is true. If the flagpole is true, that means we'll just set the velocity again, that is y velocity, to be let me say the negative of 4, and else part will be self.velocity, that is y velocity should be -3. So this is basically the floating. So if you see here, this should be here, and this is basically we are implementing, that is basically the score that should be float up. So next thing what you're gonna do is, we'll just create this sprite sheet again like previously we have done. So let me just create that. So it will be sprite and sheet. So this should be initialized from the setup module, and just call this gfx and item objects, because we have sprite that we need in this item objects. So next thing what you can do after this is just create me a dictionary. So this is to track this sprite and the score. So that should be create, let me say create image and Dict. So this is basically for dictionary. So let me just basically this will be the function which we have to implement now. So let's create that. So let me say create and image Dict. So this will be our function, and it will take a current object. So before that, we'll just go here and just check for new parameters. That will be score. That is, we want to show the score, and this score should be string. Basically, there is the score that is normally integer, but we have to typecast it to this string in order to make it string. So next thing what you can do is we'll just create the another function, and this will be just define here, that is create digit list function. This is creating us a digit list, and similarly flagpole score. Now let me say flagpole score should be now flagpole. So let's create this create image dict function, that is basically dictionary. So what this create image dict basically does is it creates the dictionary for all the number images that we needed. So let's assign for that image dictionary to be the empty dictionary first. Let me say image dict must be empty here. After that, let's assign the image now, that is image O first, and we'll just create first the get image function in order to get that. So that should be outside this, and I'll say this should be get image. It should be get image function, and it will take self and x and y. And if you go here in this coin, and you can see we have here a bunch of a code that is for the getting the image. So let me just copy it from here and paste it out here, because this will be exactly the same. So let me just paste it out here. So well, now just assign this image to be from this get image, and let's pass this position to be 1 and 168, 3 and 8. This will be the first image. So let me just copy it now and assign it multiple times, and let me assign it quite a 10 times, because we want this nearly 10 times or 11 times. So first is 8, 1, 168 and 3, 8. So next image will be of name 2. This is basically 1, and it will be here 5, and height and width will be same, and next will be image 2 here. So let me just quickly put here 2, 3, should be 4, it should be 5, 6 image, and you can just check this position in this sprite. Basically sprite is item object, so go in this item object and check for the position, and if you see what is basically score we are talking about, then you can see here that is just, let me just make it smaller, and you can check it out the position for our score. So let's go back to this score.py, and now here in this after 5 we have 8 and 9, 10, 11. 10, it should be 11. So let me see, it should be at 5, 7, 68. So next would be 8, 8, 168, and next would be 8, 12, and next would be 8 somewhere 16, and next will be 8, 20. This is basically the position at x, and let me quickly write it. So it should be, so I've checked once, it should be 12, 16, 20, 32, 37. We have now 37 here, and after that we have something that is, this should be 4. So let me just remove this, and now here in this 4 image, let me say it should be 12, and this one should be 16, and this should be 20 at x, and 32, 37, and last will be at 43 at x, and y will be exactly at the same, that is it's 168, and just to make it width is 38. Let me just increase this width 4 and 5 and again 4 5. So we have now images for this dictionary, and this is basically the floating images. Now next thing what you can do is just create the image dict, and we have there image dict at an empty dictionary. So in this we'll just put here a O, that is referencing to this O to be an image O. So let's just copy all of these and just put that in this basically our images. That is, in the case of 1, it should have one image, that is first image. In the case of 2, it should have the second image, here should be second. In case of the fourth, let me just paste it again here, just copy it again. So in the case of the 4, we have the image 4 here, and let me quickly do it. So here we have created this dictionary with an key 0 to 11 and assigned each image to that respected keys. So next thing what you can do here is create the digit list. So if you see here, we have just called this create digits list from the initializer, but we haven't created this function. So let's create that here. That should be create digit and list. So let's create that and just give the self, and this basically creates the group of the images based on the score received. So let me say that this digit and this digit list, let me create that digit list first, and in this digit list we should create another group here, that is for this digit group. So let me make, instead of this digit list, let me make a group for the digit. So that can be initialized as pg.sprite, and we have done this many times before from this group function, and we have now created this group for our digits. So next thing we'll just loop in this digit, basically in this score string. So for that we'll just say for digit, let me just make here digit in it should be self, because we have created that list before. It should be self score string, and we'll just loop it here, and we have now digit. So we'll make that digit to append in this list, basically in this digit list. That can be done as self.digit list. Just use this append function to append, that is just call this digit class. Now if you see here, this is the digit class here, and now it should be called with the image. So that image would be, that is this image, so that should be from image dict, and just pass here a digit. So after that what you can do is we'll just set the image now, and basically this should be created here with a new function, that is set a rectangle for the respective images. So we'll just create the self rect and for images. So let's define that function now. So that should be self set rex, it should be rex for images, it should be images, and it should get only this rect, that is the basically it will just set the rect for this all of these images of the dictionary. So we'll just loop now in this, basically enumerate means we'll just loop with this digit, and this should be in enumerate. So this is basically enumerable, that means we can just iterate through it, that means we can just loop through it. So that should be digit list here. So in this digit list what you're gonna do is we'll say digit dot this digit dot rect, we'll make the rect out of it. So that should be done as digit dot image, so this should be image, and just get that rectangle out of this image from this get rect function, and after that we'll just create the rectangle for the x and y. That should be done as digit dot rect dot x should be assigned as self of x, and just multiply by, that is I here, that is each digit into 10. So it should be multiplied so as to convert it to the integer. And the next thing what you can do is we'll just create the rect again for this y, and it should be self.y. So we have now this set rect for image. So next thing what you can do is we'll just update the score by this update function. So this update function will take the score list now, that is score list and level info, that means which level you are working. So in this project we'll be only dealing with this level 1. So for that it basically updates the score movement. So we'll just loop now again in this digit list. So for that we'll just create a new variable, that is number, in order to loop, and that should loop in this digit list. And in this digit list we'll just create this rect x and rect y, but in this case it will be only y, because we're just dealing with the y, and x position should be still with having the text to it. So in this case, in the y, what you should do is we'll just have this velocity, that is y vel, and I'll say if score list is true, that means you have to now create another function, that is like check to delete. What if it is true, then check to delete floating scores. We'll just implement this now, that is floating scores. So as the name suggests, it will just check to delete the floating scores, and it will take our score list for that and level info. So now next thing what you can check is we'll check, that is if the flagpole score is true. That means go to this flagpole score attribute, and if it is true, then what you can do is we'll just check now again for that rectangle dot y is less than or equal to 120, because it is just floating case. That means I'll say this digit that must be digit list, and get that O, that is first element, and just get the rect of y position out of it. And if it is greater or equal to 120, then you can just do something, that is self dot y, and velocity should be here O. And next thing we'll just do is draw now from this draw function, and it will take the value, that is current object, and the screen where we should draw. So this draw function basically draws the score numbers onto the screen. So for that we'll just loop again for this digit in this self.digit list, that is basically in our digit list that contains the numbers, and we'll just bleed that in the screen. So that should be bleed image, so it should be digit image, it should be digit, and it should be digit dot image. Get that image and bleed it in digit dot rect, and this digit dot rect. So we have drawn. Now it's time to implement this check to delete floating scores. So let's do that. It should be check to delete floating scores, floating, and it should be scores, and obviously it will take our score list and level info. So let's put that here. It should be score list and level info. So in here what you're gonna do is we'll just check now for this basically deleting the floating score. So for that what you're gonna do is we'll say for I comma score, again we'll just loop in this enumerator. So we'll just loop in this enumerate, which is iterable, and we'll just pass here a score list. So now we'll just check for the score. So that should be like, and this basically functions check if the score need to be deleted or not. So basically we'll just check if the score, that is just convert it into the int, that is score dot score string. So this was basically string when we just created here, that was converted to str. So that was here. So this score was converted to string. Now it should be converted back to the integer, so it's to compare. So if it is equal to 1000, then what you're gonna do is we'll just say again, that is if score dot y here is greater than score dot digit list, that is this score dot digit list, and the digit list the first value that is of y, and dot get that rect y is greater by somehow like 130 to 150, then you will just pop it out. In order to delete, we'll just pop it out from this score list. Just call this pop function and give I here. Else what you're gonna do is we'll just pop, that is if it is greater than 75 maybe, and for that we'll say if score dot y is greater maybe by this score dot digit, again that should be digit list, and get this y here, and just get this rect of y is again greater than 75. Let me say 80 here. If it is greater than 80, then just maybe pop it out again. Just pop this data that needs to be deleted. So here should be I. So now we have implemented our score.py. In the next lecture we'll implement that is in this level1.py, and we'll check our game. So see you in the next.